Tired of voting for a minor party or independent only to find your vote went to a party you do not support? We the people can change this. Voting in Australia is an obligation. Adults over 18 are required to participate in federal, state and council elections. Even though it might seem like a chore, voting gives the people the opportunity to either re-elect the sitting government, provided the people are actually satisfied with the job the party's been doing, or... Yay! It's very important to understand the basic structure of the preferential voting system to ensure your vote goes to a party you support. So, do you understand the preferential vote count? Do you understand that preferences can actually make the difference that can vote out the current party in government? It is critical in these times to understand that we have the power to change the outcome where in the past one of the two major parties formed government. It is not a given that one of the two major parties get in. It happens because we've been encouraged to vote via the how to vote cards. This system has had either the Labor or Liberal coalition parties forming government every election since the 1940s. In this presentation, the focus will be on applying this knowledge of preference voting to the upcoming Australian federal election, due in the first half of 2022. We have the opportunity to disrupt the current paradigm by supporting minor parties and independents, giving them a better chance of representing us. In the following example, we will focus on the voting in the House of Representatives, because this determines who governs Australia. It's time to understand how to maximise the minor party vote whilst minimising the major party vote. Here is an example of a House of Representatives voting slip for a made-up electorate. The candidates on this slip don't actually exist and are used as an example only. This shows a slip filled out in a valid manner, ensuring there are sequential numbers filling all boxes and indicating votes to favour candidates we would want to see win the seat. Our desired candidate has a number 1 in the box. The second desired candidate has a number 2, and so on. If you want to give the major parties the least chance of winning, ensure they have the highest numbers on the voting slip, in this case 7, 8 and 9. The vote counting is similar to the running of a horse race. The first one out of the box is not necessarily going to be the winner, and the lead can change many times throughout the race. It's the horse that crosses the finish line first that counts. Let's assume there are 100,000 voters in this made-up electorate. The number 1 or first preference votes on all 100,000 slips are counted. The votes were cast as follows. If a candidate secures an absolute majority of over 50% of first preference votes, that candidate secures the seat. In this electorate, it would require 50,001 votes to achieve this. If you look at the numbers, no candidate secured an absolute majority of over 50% of first preference votes on the first count. Therefore, using the Australian preferential voting system, the candidate with the fewest votes is eliminated from the count. In this case, it's GAP. The 3,000 votes from the ballots that placed the GAP candidate first are reallocated to the remaining candidates according to the number 2 or second preference votes on each of those 3,000 votes. These votes are added to the first count votes. This is called the second count. After the allocation of the 3,000 GAP votes, if no candidate has yet secured an absolute majority of the vote, then the next candidate with the fewest votes is eliminated from the count, and the same process follows. In this case, it's the A1 party that gets eliminated, and their 4,200 votes get allocated to the second preference on the ballots that voted A1 as their first choice. This is the third count, where a second preference is given to a party who has already been eliminated, in this case GAP or A1, the third or subsequent preferences are used. This preference allocation is repeated until there is a candidate with an absolute majority. As you can see with the sequence of images, the list of candidates diminishes However, the total of votes always equals 100,000, which is the number of voters in the electorate. The votes have been redistributed to reflect more closely the candidate that represents the majority of the electorate. The winner in this example is the UAP, even though the candidate did not have the highest number of number 1 votes in the first count. It is important to support all minor parties and independents in the upcoming election by numbering preference votes to minor parties first and to ensure the major parties are numbered last. That way, as parties are eliminated in the counting process, the preference votes are consolidating amongst the minor parties. It is essential we as Australian voters understand the preferential voting system and that the preferences on the voting slips are up to us to determine, not as indicated by the how to vote cards issued at polling booths. Please help us to educate all voters in the coming election by sharing this video.